We spend our entire lives being told that failure is something to be avoided, something to be ashamed of. But what if I told you that's completely backwards? What if mistakes are actually the secret fuel for getting things right? That's the whole idea behind black box thinking, and it's a concept that can literally change your entire relationship with failure. Okay, to really get this, let's just start with a shocking comparison. In the world of aviation, your chance of dying on a flight is about 1 in 2.4 million. It's incredibly safe. Now let's look at healthcare. In the US, preventable medical mistakes lead to a number of deaths that's like 2 jumbo jets falling out of the sky every single day. So, what's going on here? How can two fields, both full of brilliant, dedicated professionals, have such wildly different safety records? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. One industry has mastered the art of learning from failure, while the other one, well, it has a tendency to bury its mistakes. And to understand why we hide our errors, we have to look inside our own heads, because this isn't just about doctors or pilots. It's about a fundamental glitch in our human psychology that affects every single one of us. It all comes down to this thing called cognitive dissonance. It's that awful, cringy feeling you get when reality clashes with how you see yourself. So you have this belief, I'm a smart, competent person, right? But then you have this fact, I just made a really dumb mistake. Those two ideas can't coexist peacefully in your brain, and it creates this mental static, this actual discomfort. And to get rid of that discomfort, our brains become master storytellers. We start to rationalize. We invent narratives to explain away the mistake, to protect our ego. We say things like this, excuses that make us feel better in the moment, but completely block our ability to learn anything. So, how do you get around that? Well, let's look back at the aviation industry, because they figured out something genius. They didn't try to change human nature. They knew they couldn't. Instead, they built a new system around human nature. They created this incredible feedback loop. First, and this is key, they destigmatized mistakes. An error isn't a sign of a bad pilot, it's a sign of a bad system. That allows people to report mistakes without fear. Then, all that data gets analyzed to find the real root cause. And finally, this is the magic. They create a fix that gets rolled out to the entire industry so nobody ever has to make that same mistake again. This focus on the system is the game changer. So if a pilot makes a mistake because they're exhausted, they don't just blame the pilot. They ask, is our scheduling system creating fatigue? And they fix that for everyone. When B-17 pilots kept crashing because they pulled the wrong lever, they didn't just tell them to be more careful, they redesigned the cockpit so the levers felt different. They fixed the system, not the person. Okay, so this is all great for giant industries, but what about you and me? How do we apply this to our own lives? Well, we can start by building our own personal black box by adopting 4 powerful ways to reframe failure. All right, first up, this is a big one. It's a fundamental shift in how you view your own screw-ups. Stop seeing your mistakes as character flaws. Start seeing them as system flaws. Did you forget to take your vitamins again? That's not a moral failure, it's a system failure. The fix? Put the bottle right next to your toothbrush. System upgraded. Can't seem to eat healthy? That's a system flaw. Automate it with a recurring grocery delivery. A mistake is just a signal that your personal system needs a little tweak. Okay, number 2. This one tackles one of the most common and dangerous excuses we tell ourselves. You know that voice in your head that says, oh, don't worry about it. That was just a one-off, a freak accident. Yeah, that voice is lying to you. There's no such thing as a one-off. A mistake you got away with, a near miss, that's not luck. That's a gift. It is a free lesson, a warning sign from the universe that your system has a vulnerability, and if you ignore it, it will happen again. All right, third reframe. This one is about connecting the dots between failure and all the amazing things we admire. We tend to look at amazing success, a brilliant product, a world-class restaurant, an incredible athlete, and we assume they just got it right from the start. Nothing could be further from the truth. That success is standing on a mountain of tiny failures. That amazing dish you love is the result of hundreds of mediocre versions that got tweaked and improved. Success isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about accumulating the lessons from them. And finally, the fourth and most counterintuitive reframe. This one completely flips the script on what it means to be confident. We think that making mistakes chips away at our confidence. But what if it's the other way around? Think about David Beckham. He famously practiced thousands and thousands of free kicks. Now, most of those kicks probably missed, right? But every miss wasn't a failure. It was data. It was his body learning exactly how much power, how much spin was needed. True, unshakable confidence doesn't come from never failing. It comes from having failed thousands of times and knowing you learned something from every single attempt. So when you start to put all these pieces together, the takeaway becomes incredibly simple and incredibly powerful. And who could possibly say it better than Michael Jordan? Listen to this. He doesn't see his success as something separate from his failures. He sees his success as a direct result of them. He embraced every single one of those 9,000 missed shots, and that is what made him the greatest. So I'll just leave you with this question. Think about your last week. What was that little frustrating moment, that mistake, that near miss? Don't just brush it off. Look at it again. What is that failure trying to tell you about your system? And what tiny upgrade can you make today to make sure it never happens again?